Let's go ahead and put some more details behind these 7 types of rules that we already mentioned and looked at a figure. This is a lot of text, and I'm going to read it because they are interesting and important as well. 7 types of rules in detail. Position rules. As discussed in Chapter 3, an important component of an action situation is the set of positions that participants can occupy, whether it's a chess game that we discussed, the buyer, seller, eBay, whatever, soccer game, and so on. In India, I should be saying cricket, 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 but I'm so influenced by the book and its examples that I keep saying soccer. Because they're Europeans, they love soccer, right? Position rules create these positions. Oops, let me bring up the pointer. Position rules create these positions. Since various rules relate to actions that participants in certain positions may, must, or must not make, these position rules have important consequences. So not following the rules has consequences. The position rule creates a scaffolding. It's kind of an awning for a wide diversity of situations that can vary significantly in terms of the number of positions and the relative authority assigned to each position in a given action situation. Whether you are a teacher, a student, you are the headmaster, the principal, whatever, every situation, every action situation, action arena, you can imagine the relative authority. A position rule could be defined such that all people in the action situation occupy the same position. Other position rules define more specific positions such as the chairperson or the referee. Okay. A position rule may also state whether there is a limit to the number of participants that can occupy a certain position, how many players you have, how many clerks you have, how many teachers you have. Most sports have rules regarding how many players of a team are allowed to be on the field at a time. For example, soccer teams have a maximum of 11 field players and a minimum of 8 field players. So you can play with fewer players for various reasons, injuries, eliminated, red cards, and so on, but you cannot be less than 8 field players. For a Senate to make, or more than 11 players, for a Senate to make decisions, a certain quorum needs to be met, meaning that a minimum number of senators need to be present in order to make binding decisions. You cannot pass a new rule, a regulation, or alter existing rules, amend them, and so on without having this kind of a majority as defined already to make binding decisions. Sometimes the maximum number of participants in a certain position is restricted by the biophysical condition, how many spectators you can have in an arena, for example. For example, the maximum number of students who can take a course is often defined by the official number of seats available in a classroom, which is a physical limitation. Of course, sometimes it's also related to what is reasonable for a class size for one instructor to manage if it's a physical classroom. If you have online, like I'm putting these podcasts, obviously I have no limitation on the number of people that can be watching, right? Even at the same time. Boundary rules. Boundary rules are often called entry and exit rules, obviously. They define who is eligible to enter position, the process that determines which eligible participant may enter or must enter positions, and how an individual may leave or must leave a position. So you can again imagine games where this happens. For example, during a soccer game, a coach can bring in a new player if an existing player is taken off the field for whatever reason. Depending on the sport, there are specific rules regarding how many switches a team is allowed to make during a match. You cannot keep on making switches. There are limits, so you have to choose wisely as well. So you're still working with boundary rules, position rules, outcome rules, and so on, scope rules. Thus, some entry rules specify the criteria to be used to determine whether an actor is eligible to fill a particular position. Ascribed and acquired attributes are frequently used in this type of entry rule. Individuals may have to meet certain physical standards such as height and weight. Think about boxing, for example. Weight is important there, or the military, where weight and height and physical fitness can be important. They may have to meet a certain wealth standard or pay an entry fee like in a golf country club. Individuals may be required to possess a certain range of experiences to be or to be above a minimum age, to have graduated from certain schools, to be the descendants of a particular group, to possess certain abilities, and to live in certain geographical areas. You cannot play in the Olympics for India unless you are an Indian living in India, and so on, right? Public employment under civil service systems and patronage systems differ substantially with respect to the entry rules that are applicable. Obviously, if you are working for a public entity, a public sector unit, versus a company owned by someone, the entry rules obviously will be very different. When those crafting a rule help to increase the skills and knowledge held by those in a position, they may list one or more acquired characteristics such as holding a college degree or passing a test. For example, to become a tenure-track professor at most public universities within the US, one is required to have acquired a relevant PhD degree. And as somebody who was tenured at a US public university, I know this. Contentious debates have and will continue to erupt over whether one or another attribute should be included in a rule. So these are not fixed forever, so they do evolve. For example, in the past, race was used to deny access to many public places for black citizens within the US, and obviously civil rights and so on came about, and these were all mostly abandoned. Now whatever happens is not systemic, it's implicit or explicit, and people are breaking rules when they do that. So that's the idea of having rules. Sometimes, because then it should be punishable, right? Sometimes boundary rules are not specific about the attributes of individuals who may occupy positions. For example, boundary rule for a party may be those invited may attend. Boundary rules don't always include a choice. Sometimes a suspect has been arrested by the police and he has no choice, or she has no choice, as to whether participate in court proceedings concerning charges made by the state, i.e. those in the position of defendant. The suspect also has no choice in exiting his or her position. Other examples of compulsory positions taken by participants are those who are drafted into the military, serving on a jury, or about paying taxes. If you are living in a country and earning money, even if you don't have to pay tax, you have to file taxes to say how much you earned and why you are qualified not to pay taxes. So those are the boundary rules that are applied. Okay. Should we read one more? I keep looking at time just to make sure I'm not going for too long. Let's read one more. It's only 8 minutes. So choice rules. Choice rules specify what a participant occupying a position must not, or may do at a particular point in a decision process in light of conditions that have or have not been met at that point in the process. Sounds complicated, but basically you know that if you're playing cricket and you are in a certain position, you have choices on what you must and must not do and what you may have to do depending on what's happening. The actions that participants must not, I always keep forgetting the pointer. In the beginning, when I started to make these podcasts, I was trying to use the pointer, like going this way, and then somebody said, "You idiot, you can use the laser pointer, which is provided by PPT." Right? At my age, I should have known that, but having taught in person, in class, where I use a physical laser pointer or a stick, I'm just not, I wasn't just thinking properly. So as a participant where I am the person recording, I have certain choices and certain boundary rules that I must follow, and if I don't follow them, the outcome is not what it is supposed to be. The clarity of what I'm pointing to is not as good when I use a pointer as opposed to a laser pointer. Okay, there I gave you an example here. The actions that participants must not, or may do are dependent both on the positions they hold, prior action taken by others and or by themselves, and attributes of relevant state variables. Again, complicated sounding, but intuitively you know exactly what that means. A suspect in a criminal case has limited choices, for example, what to plead, whether to hire a lawyer, whether or not to testify on his or on her own behalf. A parent has many choices to make and often needs to make choices for their children, especially if they are under the age of 18. Law requires you to sign off on many choices that the kid may want to make but cannot make without your explicit permission. The choices available also depend on the conditions of particular actions. If a carpenter injures his hand while hammering a nail on the job, the carpenter may be eligible for compensation because of the arrangements related to activities of the workplace. So workplace injuries are covered in many ways. If the carpenter gets injured at home outside of the work situation, no such compensation may be received. The carpenter may be a member of a club that provides members with disability insurance, but that choice is related not to the position of the employee, but rather to the position of the member of the group insurance plan. So you are an employee, but then you have additional position you can take as a member of the group insurance plan to qualify for disability insurance, unemployment insurance, and so on. Okay, so let's definitely stop this here and come back and continue. I said it'll finish soon, but I keep stretching them just to make sure that I'm not overburdening each podcast with too many things. Okay.